So I'll probably give you just a little overview of what we're going to go over tonight, what's on our agenda for our table of contents. And first, we're going to do introductions. And after introductions, we're going to talk a little bit about philosophy. And Kelly Nguyen is going to lead us in that, talking about that solidification and the subplane, the back part of the subplane, and cosmic education in relationship to cosmic education. And then Mrs. Wilson is going to talk about the actual student, and we're grateful for that. And she has a little slideshow. One of the things that the students do in the upper elementary to solidify their knowledge and to have a touchstone to go back and sometimes use in the intermediate is that they produce a portfolio. So she's taken some time to consolidate a few of our students who are graduates or in the intermediate now to look at portfolio work from the perspective of cosmic education. And then she's going to talk a little bit about that top of that plane of development. And then she's going to give you an overview of what some of the upper elementary traditions are, what's new in the upper elementary, and what you can expect as a parent. And a little bit also about transitions to the intermediate, just what happens at the very end. So how do we handle that? Because all of these things are very unique to supporting the child, and we're just so thrilled to see them grow up and everything they become. It's amazing, right? Yeah, so I can't wait I had a student come back. It was in the spring during COVID, and they'd been accepted to the University of Maryland Business College, and they drove their cool car up and brought me flowers. And they were like, "Mrs. Manick, I just was accepted to the University of Maryland's Business College, and I wanted to bring you flowers." I thought that was the sweetest thing, right? So grown up. Yeah, that's sort of our lineup for tonight. It's my greatest privilege and honor to introduce the upper elementary team. And Kelly Nguyen is pinching in for COVID time until we figure out what's next. And we're just going to be transparent. We don't know about really how that's all going to unfold for us in terms of re-densifying the classrooms yet. Probably on a very step-by-step basis. And many of you know Kelly from the lower elementary. Then she's done admissions, and she's fantastic and amazing. And yeah, it's Kelly Nguyen. And Linda Wilson, who has been at Butler Montessori for many, many years. And I am so grateful to have had the honor to work with her. And yeah, a little emotional kind of week for us. And I'm very happy to introduce Mr. Brown tonight. Kelly Brown is just, been amazing joining our team last year, right? It's hard to even imagine in the middle of all of COVID how this is all kind of unfolding. But yeah, it's just really, really fun. Oh, and I see Miss Rodwin came in. So Emma Rodwin, director of the intermediate program, is joining us tonight as well. She might pitch in when she feels maybe we're off base. She's always good at that. So there's our elementary team, our upper elementary team, our adolescent director, and I'm going to give it to Kelly to talk a little bit about the subplane, and then we'll kind of take you through what is that child doing in the upper elementary? What do they do all day?
Hello. Again, my name is Kelly Nguyen. Wait, I think I know everybody here, actually. Everybody here knows me. Yeah, okay, awesome. So most of you know me either from lower elementary or from admissions. And so I wanted to start off just by telling you kind of a funny story. You know, when I left the classroom, I thought I was going to be in admissions for a while. I didn't think I was going to go back to the classroom. And of course, they were throwing lots of ideas out. Kelly, do you want to go get your primary training and help us out in primary? And then we ended up making the decision that it'd be best for me to go back to the classroom into the upper elementary. And I was so nervous because I thought they were a complete different species. I I remember going to Linda, going to Laura, everyone, Emma. I've cried to everyone. I'm like, I don't know what to do with these kids, right? And then they all were just like, Kelly, go back to your albums, go back to your training. The elementary plane, right? The second plane is from 6 to 12, and you were trained from 6 to 12. And think about cosmic education. So, I went back and I looked, and they were all right. It was all there. It's all in my head. It's all in my heart. And so that's my quick little funny story for you all. But the elementary curriculum is called the Cosmic Education. And cosmic education allows the children to explore the subject areas and experience how all of the subject areas are interrelated and how all the things are connected to our universe and how the universe was created. And most of you are familiar with the cosmic education through the 5 great stories. And just to quickly kind of review those 5 great stories for you, the first one talks about how the earth came to be, and then we have the coming of life, and then we have the coming of human beings, and we also talk about the story of math and the story of language. So we talk about how all of those are interrelated with all the subject areas. And sometimes there's this misconception that there are like no subject areas in the elementary, right? Because we call it cosmic education, it's all interrelated, but we still have our math, we still have our language, we still have our science. We don't call it science in Montessori as much. Sometimes you might hear it being called biology or geography. So all of our biology lessons have to do with life. So we typically talk about plants and animals. And then in geography, we kind of talk about the non-living. But interestingly enough, when Linda and I taught online, we also talked about the characteristics of life in geography. So that was really nice. And then you have history. Oh, so much history. That's what I'm focusing on right now, especially for Black History Month. And I'm having a lot of fun learning how to teach history in upper elementary, right? Because in lower elementary, we did a lot of ancient civilizations. We did a lot about the early humans. And so now we're talking about the humans that were in our country, right? We're talking a lot about US history, and we're talking a lot about Maryland history too. And language, parts of speech, sentence analysis, math and geometry. So all of that's interrelated. And I quickly jotted down some notes right before when I was sitting here with Natasha waiting for everyone to come on, just to kind of give you an example of this cosmic education of just right now. So with Black History Month, the upper elementary, Linda and I are studying the Harlem Resistance or Renaissance, sorry. The children keep calling it the Harlem Resistance, and it's so funny because now it's getting stuck in my head, the Harlem Renaissance. And so of course, we think that's history, right? American history, US history. But today I gave a lesson about Langston Hughes and poetry, and we're working on writing in the style of Langston Hughes. We read the poem Mother to Son, and we were comparing, in his poem, the mother is comparing life to a staircase, and how like life is hard. You have to climb the stairs, and the stairs might be tacked or tattered, and it might be hard, but you keep going, you don't turn back, right? So we're talking about metaphors. And so I asked them, what else can life be like? And I'm waiting for someone to say life is like a box of chocolates, but I guess they've never watched that movie. I don't know. But we came up with a lot of things. Henry said it's like a rock climbing or climbing a mountain because he's really interested in rock climbing. A couple of them said it's like a game or a video game. You have achievements and things you have to unlock and learn, and there are puzzles for you to solve. Some of them said life is like a mystery book. You don't really know what's coming, but it's really interesting. You have to keep reading and keep going. And there were all these really interesting ones, and we chose one to continue writing about, and we chose life is like a jar of jelly beans. And there's some sweet ones, and then some sour ones, some really yummy ones, and some yucky ones. They all voted that the licorice was not their favorite. Sorry, Linda. I know you really like your licorice. And so then we started just kind of using the mother to son poem as our template. So just kind of going line to line how we would write that poem as if we were writing it as life is a jar of jelly beans. And we also had to think about who the speaker was, right? Langston Hughes talked about it was mother to son. So ours was a candy man at like a candy store talking to a young child that's buying candy. So that was really sweet. So of course we have language, there's lots of art in the Harlem Renaissance. Tomorrow we're gonna have an art project with Jacob Lawrence. We have geography. When I first introduced to them, I said, have you heard of the Harlem Renaissance? And then, I've heard of the Renaissance Festival or the Renaissance Fair. Is that the same thing? And I said, Harlem, is that a person? Is that a place? They had no clue, right? So we read this introductory article for them. I'm like, oh, it's a place. Oh, it's a place in New York. Oh, we can still visit this place, right? So they're making these connections with geography. Still trying to work on the math part, but my plan is they're going to make a timeline. And Linda has her hand raised. She's going to give us some ideas. We're going to have a timeline. They need to mark the years. And we're going to have to measure so that our timeline can be beautiful and organized. So there's lots and lots in there that is all interconnected. And this interrelatedness, this connectiveness works with all the subjects, works with all the topics. And that's what I really, really love about cosmic education.
Thank you,
Kelly.
Kelly.
Is that a good summary?
That's a good summary. That's a good
right.
little drop into the cosmic viewpoint of from small to large and back to small again.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Linda, how are you? You're muted. No one can hear you. No. So I'm going to take that moment while Linda gets that sorted out to introduce Brian and Kelly Kautz, and they're up in the right-hand corner of my screen. I don't know where they are in yours. Wave, guys. Hey.
Can you hear me yet?
Yeah.
You can hear me now?
Let me finish.
Okay.
Wait a second. Let me finish. We can hear you. And they are happy to have you reach out to them if you'd like to talk about the upper elementary experience with a parent that has been there, done that, and is getting ready to, how did that happen?
Too fast.
Too fast, right? Too fast. So, and they can give an overview of their experience and how it went for them, and you can call them and ask any kind of personal questions you might have about that.
Certainly.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Yep.
There are BPC presidents. If you don't recognize them, come to bingo and we'll see you there.
Next 2 weeks from today.
2 weeks, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So, well, just a little troubleshoot for someone right now. I'm going to ask Mrs. Soderberg if you can send Xander's dad, Aaron, a link to this meeting. He tried it and I just got an email from him and he's not able to access it.
He got it. He found it. He found another one.
I actually just found it.
Oh,
Thank you.
Hi.
Sorry
Yay,
about
I'm
that.
so
Hi,
glad.
Aaron. I got your back though. Well, good. I'm glad you made it. So that was such a perfect segue. Thank you, Kelly, so much. And I want to share this with you because math in the context of not specifically the Harlem Renaissance, but math in the context of Black History Month, we can look at the calculators for NASA, right? The women, the predominantly women who did all of the manual calculations for those early Mercury launches before even the Apollo program, all of that, there were no calculators that, that would do that level of scientific math, and it was all done by hand. And there were many women, of course, the movie and the book Hidden Figures, kind of brought that all to the forefront to our attention. So we're going to look at that to hit math on the cosmic continuum, so to speak. So, and I thought that was interesting. I knew we were going to talk about it. So I thought I'd give you this nice little visual really quickly. Quick little cosmic education, the way it's all interconnected. We're not going to spend any time. I just thought I'd pop it up there really quick and show you that there are some people who really do a lot of thinking about this. So the piece that I'm going to talk to you a little bit about tonight is, you know, when Kelly was talking about, oh no, upper elementary, that's a new thing, that's a new being, how do I deal with that? Yes, it is part of the entire 6-year plan of development. However, there are some differences a little bit. I think Mr. Brown, Miss Nguyen, and I would all agree. And actually, Miss Rodwin, now that she has the elementary training, we can all attest to the fact that when we look at our lessons in our albums, we always have the beginning presentations for how you present this to someone who's never seen it before. Here are the materials, here's how you give the lesson. And then very often, when it gets to the upper elementary child for follow-on work, it's follow-on work, do your research, right? So you think, oh my gosh, what do I do with these older children who've had so many of these introductions? How do I take it forward? And I can tell you from personal experience, that felt daunting to me too. I had a very long career in lower elementary for a long time before I felt that I was prepared enough to take on the upper elementary. There are a lot of lessons, there are a lot of subject matter that, that don't have very specific lessons, and that the teacher has to prepare and go. I do a lot of reading. I haven't read a book for pleasure in a long time. I read a lot of nonfiction to support the work I do in the classroom. So there is a level of preparation for the adult. But what we do when you look at the difference between what we call these two subplanes, one of the things that I like to liken it to is the process of the entirety of the elementary is very similar metaphorically to what is called the 3-period lesson in the primary. And I saw, where is she? Megan's here. So I have a little visual for you. So I'm going to share my screen just because. So in a 3-period lesson, the first period is you would pick a concept and you would give the language to the child. And so you would say, if you look at the first one, this is an equilateral triangle. Look, all 3 sides are equal. You might hand the triangle to the child, have them trace it with their fingers. Then you would hand them the second one and place it on the mat and put a label for it. This triangle is isosceles. 2 sides are the same. And then finally, you'd say this triangle is scalene. Look, no sides are the same. So in that first period, you're presenting. I'm going to come back so you can see faces. You're presenting and giving the concept. You're just giving it to the child. The second period is the period where the child does quite a bit of practice and works with the concept. It allows for practice, it allows for repetition. So you might come back and say, show me which one is equilateral. Okay, which one is isosceles? Which one is scalene? Sometimes they play a game. I know Megan probably has a lot of fun with that. And even Kelly can attest to the fact that the very youngest of the lower elementary really still enjoy this game, and you speed it up and you slow it down and you repeat the same one. And then you try, and it's a really fun game they enjoy. But still, it's concrete. You're giving them the prompts where, as teachers, they still see the names of the labels nearby. So they still have that kind of concrete reference. So the third period of a lesson like this would be the point at which the child is ready to demonstrate their mastery. And so in this case, when the 3 triangles are presented, we would point and say, perhaps pointing to the first one, what is this? And they might say, it's a triangle. What kind of triangle? it's an equilateral triangle. How do you know? And they are going to, from their internal memory and their experience, they're going to say, well, that's equilateral. And I know because all three sides are the same, and the word equal means the same, and lateral is Latin for side. So what does all of that have to do with the upper elementary? Well, if you take that simplistic concept and you apply it to all of the concepts that they're learning across the subject area in the context of that diagram for cosmic education, that passage of abstraction where they go from the concrete material at 6, 7, 8 years old, and even 9 and 10 with some pretty advanced math concepts, when they can abstract and think about something without a physical or concrete reference, then they are achieving mastery. And that's the point that we strive for by the time they're finished with their elementary experience. So what supports that aspect of abstraction, that ability to work through those concepts in a way where they no longer require the material? So memorization, automaticity. Of course, we often think about that in the concept of math facts, and they are really important. Opportunities for repetition. Concrete experiences definitely enhance that process towards abstraction, because when they've had that physical reference point, then they have that ability to visualize a concept in their head, in their mind, and it helps them access that abstract thought. So that is really what happens by the end of their their elementary experience, which is the end of their upper elementary. There's kind of a culmination, and the elementary portfolio is something that represents that. So I have, let's see what I'm doing here. I have some images that I took of a former student's portfolio. I'm going to share now. It's not the entire portfolio, or we'd be here all night tonight. But Mrs. Manick, we'll get to a point where if we're getting to a point where you're able to come in and have a visit in the office, we'll make sure we have some portfolios available. Mrs. Manick often does, from past graduates and upcoming graduates, and has them in her office so that you can kind of flip through and take a look. But I'm going to give you a quick slideshow of a peek. You'll see there's, for one particular subject, I'm making sure I show you a table of contents so that they have some guidelines of things that I'm expecting them to have in their portfolios. Of course, this first one is math. It's an easy one to kind of demonstrate. So there's the math elementary portfolio table of contents. Here's some examples, parts of a triangle. Notice the colors, and there's a kind of a play towards beauty and making sure that the handwriting is neat, the spelling is all correct. This is sum of angles for a pentagon. Lateral area of a triangular base prism, right? So they have to get into, understanding formula for different shapes, relationships between angles, supplementary, complementary. This is where I know Laura, I think, mentioned that the portfolio becomes a reference point in the future. So you can see this is set out to look, to have some definitions there that make it easy. This is the beginning of the Star Spangled Banner lyric. Very complicated, symbolizing the parts of speech. Classification of nouns. There's a lot of language work. Verbals, one of my favorite part of speech is a gerund. Love the gerunds. I love dancing. It's an ing word that functions like a noun. this is an example of a piece of work. I popped it in. It's not in the portfolio, but this timeline is literally in process right now in my classroom. Kelly and Brian, you can tell Dylan, you saw the beginning of the Revolutionary War timeline. So my current 6 years are working on this as we speak. So I took a couple pics today. And what I want you to notice in this is, you know, look at the beauty and the way. I have had nothing to do with this, nothing. I barely go back and walk by every once in a while. The level of detail, the way they've chosen to back their pictures. If you look carefully, you'll see there are two colored backings, blue and red. Obviously, the red is for the redcoats and the blue is the colonists. You can see the Battle of Bunker Hill. I mean, that's just a tiny little peek of what they're doing. Look at they've drawn by hand, not traced, these portraits of Lafayette and a few others. And it goes on and on. They're still working on it, as you can see. But then going back, Rapunzel's Twisted Story, this is kind of a writing exercise on fractured fairy tales. So you can take the arc of the story of a fairy tale, and then how can you take that arc and fracture the fairy tale and change it up. Right now, I'm working with some groups on plot analysis and looking at exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. And Kelly and Kelly are shaking in their boots because that is nowhere in our album. But guess what? The beauty of going online is that all of these lessons are all there ready and waiting for you. They typically will work on a newspaper, and I'll get to where they do that with one of our guests who's here tonight, and she knows who she is. I'm going to lead into her in just a second. Here's just a story, something on the Battle of Gettysburg. This is a watercolor picture of a dandelion, just to kind of show the parts of the plant, but it was also an art project. Parts of a flower, also done with watercolor. Sea urchins, that was probably coming from the timeline of life. And there is, they really love kind of coming up with a final version of all of the maps of the continents of the world, naming not just the countries, but the capitals of each country. So I think our Montessori students come out of elementary with a pretty good sense of geography, place names, right? I love that Trivial Pursuit category. Am I at the end of my slideshow? I think I'm at the end of my slideshow. So that's just a little taste of what's in a portfolio. And then let me just real quickly,
That was beautiful, Linda. I think one thing to remember that's so important about the Montessori work period is that respecting that 3-hour work period and giving them the tools and the time to do that deep dive, that's what allows some of that beautiful work to come to fruition. They still have great work. They're still working in a collaborative kind of environment. So that, and because they've known each other for a long time at that point, then in the lower elementary, they experiment with you be the artist, I'll write, you know, they take on different jobs. But in the upper elementary, they're like, oh, that's so-and-so's pretty good at that. I'm going to go over there and have him draw this portrait for me so I can put it on my timeline. And this is very unique to a Montessori environment, right? It's really thinking about how they collaborate with one another to create something that they want to do, whatever it is that they want to do. I mean, it could be going out, it could be a big timeline, and endless things they come up with.
Yeah. So then one of the other things, if I'm not jumping out of turn, that Mrs. Manick mentioned that we would talk about is, what's unique to the upper elementary. For the longest time, at Butler, everyone was so familiar with the intermediate program because they went on all these big trips, and there were these big highlights in their 2 years, which, fortunately is now stretched to 3. And so Mrs. Manick and I started thinking, well, how can we create something that helps build on the traditions that exist and create. I'm huge on traditions personally. So it was for me when I moved into this role, every new teacher that's new to a particular level or class is always going to try to bring some of themselves into it, at least anyone worth their salt. So I have a particular passion for studying the Chesapeake Bay, but that's actually going to jump me a little ahead. So let me keep that in the back of your mind. So one of the first things is what's unique to the upper elementary, the play. It's the first year that they get to really do the big play, go out to Black Rock. Of course, sadly with COVID, I don't even want to think about it. It'll make me cry to think that we just didn't get to do Mary Poppins. So the play, and it will come back. We will discover our new normal. A more expanded work with specialists is something that they start to add more to as they get to upper elementary. In particular, Mr. Powers. They love, that's kind of a point of arrival for them. Model UN, Montessori Model UN is something that has been added since I joined the upper elementary group. And it's been an amazing program. I particularly enjoy working with the students with their writing skills, which is definitely a plus when you get to having to write the position papers for Model UN. They carry that on into the intermediate. So it's a nice dovetail there. And then, of course, I mentioned my my love for the Chesapeake Bay. And I asked Mrs. Manick, I know that the upper elementary always has gone on a trip, something in the spring where they've done some nature studies. But for a long time, the teachers at that time would pick different places for them to try out, which, is a great and interesting idea. I, however, love the idea of creating kind of a set of memories that the children pass on and say, oh, wait till next year. You're going to get to go to, okay, Brian and Kelly, where are they going to go?
Echo Hill.
Echo Hill. Dylan's first year as a 4th year. Oh, you think that boy had died and gone to Echo Hill heaven. It's so, studying about the Chesapeake Bay ecosystem, the fact that the Chesapeake Bay watershed is in our region, it's our watershed, our campus drains to the Chesapeake Bay watershed. And, we have a tributary to it right on our campus. When we installed the permeable pavers, that had an impact on the Chesapeake Bay. So I love that study. The 6th year trip is something that has always been a tradition, and we try to do it every year. We've gone sailing with Mrs. Palmer, who is a sailing instructor at the Washington Sailing School. That was our last trip. I've taken them out to the Chesapeake Bay for kayaking trips. So that's always a fun thing that we look forward to. The intermediate when I just came up with the name of this intermediate crossover with 6-year students, I was mentioning our guest talking about Emma Rodwin has always done this kind of crossover work, and now Mrs. Daly is doing it too with math, so that the 6 years get an opportunity to get to know both of those 2 lead intermediate guides, and get a chance to start to develop a rapport and work with them. So in English language arts, and one of the projects that Emma does every year that we've been talking about getting ready for soon is doing a newspaper. And then, so that's coming up. So what I'd like to do now is, it didn't come off exactly the way I wanted to, but going back to that personal love of mine, and I don't know, I think it was even captured on one of the little videos that was done for Aubrey would remember it. I was asked about it. And so I was talking about the Chesapeake and my love for that. And we have a little cottage over there, my husband and I. So when it came to the point where I had to start discussing where I am and where my family needs are, and what would happen when I was ready to start to cut back on my time, who would fill in and come and take the place of carrying on these traditions for the upper elementary. And when he joined our staff, from the moment he joined our staff, I said, Kelly Brown, you have got to come and follow me and take this on, because Kelly has this similar love for nature, for the Chesapeake Bay. We share that, and I just feel so good that it's going to end up in his hands, that I'm going to segue right to Kelly and give him a chance to say hello to all of you, let you know about his passions and some of the things he's really excited about, because I could not be more thrilled to know that Kelly Nguyen is there. And if some of you don't know, I remember her year of student teaching, which happened to have been in the upper elementary. And now Kelly Brown coming in to take on those traditions. So Kelly, I'm going to turn it over to you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Linda.
Wow. I don't know how to follow that up, Linda. I'm definitely not worthy, but I really appreciate the opportunity to say hi. It's been a pleasure since I joined Butler. And like you said, Laura, it's only been, maybe 19 months, but it feels like a long, long time given what we've been through. And I've really been working so intensely and so closely with this team, Natasha, Kelly Nguyen, Emma, all the lower L guides. I mean, just last week, it was us in the lower L guides talking to primary families about what they can expect from lower elementary. And here we are now. And I see so many familiar faces here, but in case you don't know, my name's Kelly Brown. I'm a Montessori trained elementary guide. Kelly Nguyen and I trained together back in 2013 at the Washington Montessori Institute. So I haven't strayed too far from Butler, even though I haven't always taught here, but Kelly always kept me in touch, and Linda too, actually. Without even knowing Linda personally, I kept running into her at workshops and sitting at her table. And next thing you know, now she's my mentor, and she's coming down the hall to see me, and we're, saying hi every morning now. And this year has been, such a roller coaster, but also at the same time, such a welcome and wonderful opportunity. I mean, I couldn't ask for a better classroom. Linda has all of her students working so kindly and so beautifully, even though they have to stay apart. I see them, working, and I see it reflecting in my children in our lower elementary class as well. I mean, they really soak up the elder students' behavior, their passion for learning, their passion for Mr. Powers, for example. I'll be remiss not to say that he isn't, their favorite person too, because they hear it from their, elder classmates. And then, like Linda mentioned, our love of nature, I think, is definitely shared, and it's shared by me and Kelly Nguyen as well. We go on, hikes around campus as much as possible with the lower L's, and now I can't wait to do it with the upper. It will be bigger, and it will be really fun to talk about where we live. We live basically in the sweet spot, in my opinion, right between the Piedmont mountains. Like, we're at like a geological crossroads with the floodplain down south, and as you go closer towards Washington, D.C., and then out towards the east and the Potomac, and you follow it all the way to the Bay. We also, cross paths with the Anacostia River, and I know, there's a lot of exploring that we can do between those two rivers in the DC area, if you think about our location geographically. But I love looking also west towards the mountains too. I mean, there's no shortage of wonderful natural experiences that we can have at Butler Montessori. And it is a shame that we don't have going outs. I really, really love going outs. That was one of my favorite parts about joining the school. I've never worked with a school that was so organized with parents, with children, prepared. They were so courteous. They were so thoughtful in how they planned their going outs. I had so many fun trips last year to DC, to the Smithsonian's, but also, I mean, to local going out opportunities as well. And so this year, what have we done? We've done more hikes. So the 22-acre campus that we share has become our going out area, and we're finding wildlife. We were bird watching today as the snow is melting around us, watching the runoff, watching the water flow from the hills, through the melt down into our pond, down into the Seneca Creek tributary, like Linda mentioned. So
And
I
the
love
bones.
Butler.
Don't forget the bones. We find the bones.
Yeah, we find definitely some animal leftovers. There are many vultures around. So I love the campus, of course, but it's really more than that. When Linda was showing her slideshow of the curriculum, I mean, it's truly impressive. And even for families who have just joined Butler, I don't really want to shout out anybody, but you know who you are. Like, you can see that these children are really free to explode with math and language on paper. And we've really tried to do that this year, especially given they can't necessarily work in groups as closely as they have before. They don't have as many group, posters or group projects like we, have seen before, but they can learn so well in these mixed age classrooms, and that's what we have. So I would love just to wrap that up. I don't want to take too much. That was about 5 minutes. Thank you all for being so responsive, for the people that are in my class, for coming to the Zoom call. I know it's been kind of a hectic week with the snow day and the snow delay, but I am super excited about the opportunity next year, and I have 100% confidence in our team. Kelly, I can't wait to work with her. Linda is going to be on our team next year as well, mentoring us further. And then with our admin, I mean, they're just so thoughtful. So Laura, I think that's it for me, but I'm happy to answer any questions too. So.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. So we're excited to welcome Kelly Brown to the upper elementary, and I know that the children really enjoy him, and that's, I got to mention again the bottom line piece of getting deeply engaged in something is enthusiasm, right? And so when the teacher has a passion for something, this ignites a passion for the children, and then they begin to explore in a way that something that they're enthusiastic about. And when they get that engine going, they then learn how to apply that to things that are maybe less favorable to them. And that's a process that, Linda was definitely talking about, and of course, across the planes of development. So let's see, what else did I have to want to say? Oh, I'd like to say something about Emma and introduce Emma Rodwin and let her talk a little bit about transitions. Hi, Emma, thanks for coming.
Hi, everyone. Wow, I'm put on the spot a little bit. I didn't know I was going to say
hi.
But my name is Emma Rodwin. I am the director of the intermediate program. And I just can't believe that in a couple years after this meeting, we're going to be having our Investigating the Intermediates meeting, where you'll get to hear all about what we do in the intermediate program.
That's good. Give a plug, Emma. Give a plug.
I guess I'll just say that one of the best things that I love about the upper elementary and the upper elementary team is how closely we work with one another to sort of have very smooth transitions between the elementary program to the intermediate program. So Lisa Daly and I get to work with the 6th year cohort on language as well as math for give them an opportunity to get to know us a little bit, and for us to get to know them and our teaching styles, and also to keep sort of continuity of skills there. I've worked very closely with Kelly Nguyen and Kelly Brown over the years, so I'm very excited to work with both of them coming up.
Yeah, thank you, Emma. So we'll take a minute to try and answer some questions if you have questions, and let's see, you probably could raise your hand in the box, and we'll take a few questions and then wrap it up for the night. Now, you're not going to ask me what my name is, are you? We have a funny story going way back.
I don't know who you are. Anyway, private joke. So
okay.
My question,
Zach?
My question is, sorry I came late, but
Right.
How many classes are there going to be? Are there just going to be 3 upper elementaries, and how many kids in each class?
So that's a really great question. I mean, one of the things that we're struggling with right now is when and how we could redensify. And right now the plan is for there to be 2, and we are in conversation amongst all of us as to whether or not we want those 2 to live in separately, and if we could redensify, do we want to keep the big space, which Mrs. Wilson has tricked out so beautifully that everybody wants to go hang out there, and it's really cool. So we love that. And that's part of the work that we're going to be doing in the next couple of months as the government lets us know what would be the safest way, and go through with everybody and talk, okay, well, what is it that you're loving about your space, and how should we configure the school? Because there'll be many things that have to be reconfigured, because obviously we have the lower elementary and 4 pods. So the goal would be to get back to 2 pods, 2 groups, 2 classes of a good regular size. So that's the goal. But what rooms they'll be in right now, or whether or not they'll join together and maybe teach next to each other and share the big space, it's going to be dependent upon what the recommendations are for wellness, being safe from one another, and how quickly we can unravel the COVID mystery. So as I know, I'll be writing
TBD.
about it.
So TBD, like it's still to be decided. Okay.
Yep. To be decided. I mean, yeah, across the whole school, you know, that's one of my big works that I'm losing sleep over right now. Not much I can do about it. So
I like the idea of giving it all grace. But so when I look at that work, here's my follow-up question. I get anxiety because I don't think I could do that level of work. And as many of you know, my son has learning differences. So how does he not get left behind for something like that?
So I think that each teacher, as just in the same in the lower elementary, each teacher gets to know their student well and works closely with the parents to support them where they are with what they're doing, right? And not all children, you know, everyone's in a different place when they come into the environment, when they leave the environment, in the middle of the environment. And that's part of the role of a good Montessori guide, is to work closely with you and closely with your family and with Zach to make sure that he's working on the things he really needs and still having a thoughtful, well-balanced life, right? So that's the answer to that. You still would have a close relationship with your guide and work on exactly, you know, the strengths, work towards his strengths and try to support him in the areas that he needs support in.
Okay. I know that that's a 6 year and he would come in at a 3rd year, right? That was the 6 years.
That's right. That's right. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's
Okay.
the end of that. Yeah.
Right. Okay. That's it for me.
Oh, thank you. Okay, I see a question in the box that's, can you give an example of a day in the life, and is it much different from the lower elementary? Who wants to take that one? Linda.
Well, I'll take it because I've taught both levels. The short answer is nope, not really different at all. It's 3-hour work period in the morning. And the only thing that might be a little different is probably a little more focus on specialists in the afternoons, between, you know, they do a much more academic version of Spanish with Senora Castillo, and of course music and art. We actually, before Anna Jantz joined the elementary teaching staff, she was the dedicated art teacher for the upper elementary, while she was also an assistant to the lower elementary. But if you don't know, she has a background from Savannah College of Art and Design, and you know, is an amazing artist herself and did a wonderful job teaching art. So, and then of course, specialist PE with Mr. Powers. So there is a little more focus with that, which is kind of starting to get them, sorry, I have to plug in. I think Ms. Rodwin would concur that as they start to get older, and certainly once they get to that third plane, that interaction with multiple adults it starts to become very important, because they, it helps to help them figure out who they are in a broader context, right? Outside just their school environment and their home environment. So, they do interact a little more there.
The other thing that's happening with the development of the child at that point as they mature is they're looking for experts. The elementary child is still very much a generalist. They have lots of questions about many, many things. And as they mature, they're looking for that expert. And that's kind of an important part of what changes in the intermediate.
I can tell you one difference I've noticed is that they clean up much faster. So when they get ready for lunch, we start lunch on time, and then they eat their lunch so fast so that they can have extra recess, and they clean up so fast. And then the lower elementary is like, come on guys, finish eating your lunch, finish cleaning up, right? So I'll say that's one big difference I notice in a day between lower elementary and upper.
Their level of independence is continuing to build and develop, right? There's a point of mastery over the course of 6 years. So yeah, that's I'm glad you've enjoyed that. Yeah, they're very, very independent by that point.
Thank you.
I think to answer Aubrey's question in terms of the makeup of the day, it really, the 3-hour work period is sacred.
Nice. There's one more question. It's anything specific for parents of children who have not experienced the full lower elementary with the materials, and how do we feel that they've missed much from that, and then how do they transition, right? So Kelly, no, I'm sorry, Linda, you want to take that one?
Well, we were talking about this. Do you remember just the other day, and who it was we were talking about, and Emma, you'll appreciate this one. We were talking about a student who came to me as a 6th year student, had never been in a Montessori environment before. And there was one particular snow day, and things were kind of loosey-goosey because we all got a late start. And it was Adnan, and he took out the long 10 chain and rolled it out down the hallway and labeled it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then to 20 and up to it. And he, at like 11 and a half years old, and his big old self on the floor with this long chain and these tiny little labels. And he experienced that, which is normally done kind of towards the end of the primary, if I'm not wrong. Megan, correct me, right? Don't they get to that long 10 chain by the end of primary?
Yes.
And then what did he say? Was he the one who said, wow, that really is beautiful?
Yeah.
I think as much as we can have them experience the materials, even if it's in parallel with giving them a level of abstraction, that gives them a touchstone in their mind that they can begin to visualize and build more of an idea on. So I think that is really a great thing. That's a kind of short answer, but.
Well, and also, if I can just add one more thought to that, so the abstract is the goal, right? Because they're not going to walk around, as I say, you're not going to walk around with some string in your pocket to be able to measure the circumference of a circle. You have to have a formula and a way to figure it out. But to have those images and that visualization in their heads is important. And the other thing is, we don't push them into the abstract. We allow them to discover it on their own. So we don't apply the abstract, or we don't force it, right? We leave it for them to discover.
Then they have it, right?
Yeah. So when a student comes to me and said, oh, well, I was at home and my mom or my dad told me that it's all you have to do is count up the number of places behind the decimal point and the 2 numbers, and that's where you put it. I'm like, oh, don't tell them that shortcut. Let them discover it. And they will. And that's the beauty, is when they make those discoveries for themselves. Those aha moments are just magic.
They're great. Oh, hello. All right. It's pushing towards 7 o'clock and I have to go to my family birthday dinner. So it was wonderful to see you all tonight. I'm there. If you have questions that I can answer, please feel welcome to call me or reach out. And as we do know more about how it will be coming together, of course, we'll be communicating to you. We've been trying to, do that very often because there's just a lot going on right now with all of the varieties of measures that we have to take. So, but yeah, we've been doing a good job, I hope, of that. And if you have questions, please reach out. I'm here. If I'm not there, Natasha's there, your guides are there for you. And we just so appreciate your children every day. We have managed to have a really, really fun experience with them. And that counts too. Even in spite of COVID, I think many, many children will remember that year at Butler Montessori where we lived outside under the tarps. Nice to see you all.